Good morning, this is the Light School Nushara campus. We are here for our biology 10th class. Our today's topic is nitrogen fixation and it is in your book 129th page. So our last lecture was about carbon cycle, and we said that carbon cycle is very much important because the compounds or all the chemical compounds are being divided into two portions, organic compounds and inorganic compounds, whereas all living things are made up of the organic compounds. So carbon cycle is very much important. So the giving of carbon dioxide and the gaining of carbon dioxide, and then carbon is released again to the atmosphere, and then keeping the same percentage till 0.004 or 0.0038%, that is a fixed percentage of carbon in the atmosphere, is kept there, is kept constant. That because of what? That's because of carbon cycle, right? And today we are going to discuss about nitrogen cycle. So as carbon being only in 0.004% in the atmosphere, that was very important. So can you please imagine how could be nitrogen cycle? What would be its importance? As nitrogen in the air or in the atmosphere is percentage is 78. This means keeping or constant, the concentration of nitrogen is very important in the atmosphere. Keeping constant means that all organisms depend on nitrogen, right? How do they depend on nitrogen? If you remember in our last lectures, one of the last lecture we discussed that DNA, which is required for replication, which is required for reproduction, that has nitrogen in its structure. The RNA, which is required for manufacturing proteins, has RNA in its structure. All the proteins, amino acids, they are having nitrogen in their structure. Nitrogen being here in amino acids, nitrogen being here in RNA, nitrogen being here in DNA, except that we all depend on producers. So the growth depends on, growth isn't possible without the presence of proteins, without the replication or reproduction. Similarly, we cannot live without producers because all living organisms depend on producers. Producers is the start of the food chain, right? So that all those producers can produce their food because of what? Because of photosynthesis. And how is that photosynthesis carried on? That photosynthesis is because of presence of leaves. Why are leaves able to perform photosynthesis? Leaves are able to perform photosynthesis because they have photosynthetic tissues. Photosynthetic tissues have what? They have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are having a pigment. That pigment is chlorophyll. And why chlorophyll is able to absorb this sunlight to make food? That is because it's having magnesium in its center, but this magnesium is still bonded to 4 of the nitrogen atoms. If the nitrogen atoms are not here, then can we make the structure of chlorophyll? Obviously no. So nitrogen cycle, keeping the nitrogen constant in the atmosphere, that is very important because nitrogen is required to live and to grow. So nitrogen cycle usually consists of 4 main stages. These stages are, stage number 1 is nitrogen fixation. Stage number 2 is nitrogen uptake. Stage number 3 is nitrification. And stage number 4 is denitrification. They are mentioned in your book over here. If you please look here, So the nitrogen cycle consists of 4 main groups: nitrogen fixation, nitrogen uptake, nitrification, and denitrification. So our first stage in nitrogen cycle is nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation is the process when molecular nitrogen of the air or of the atmosphere is converted to ammonium, NH4 plus ammonium or ammonia, right? So this molecular nitrogen is converted to ammonium, but it cannot be converted directly to ammonia. Why? That it is not an easy thing. Because all living organisms cannot directly depend on nitrogen. So this nitrogen has first to be changed into a simple and easy form. And that simple and easy form to capture, that is ammonia or ammonia. It's in ionizable form, so it can be consumed easily, because if you look at nitrogen molecule, so nitrogen is bonded to nitrogen and they are bonded together by 3 bonds. So the more there are bonds, the more closely they are bounded. The more closely they are bound, the harder to separate them or the harder to break them down. So what happens that when they are converted into ammonia by bacteria, and not all bacteria can convert this molecular nitrogen into amine. There are special groups of bacteria, and one of the group, or we can say the genus, one of the type of those bacteria is rhizobium. Rhizobium. Alright, and what you have to do, either you have to underline this thing, the name of the bacteria, either you have to write it like this. Now that is known as italic form, rhizobium, a bit tilted, right, like this. Or you have to make it bold. Okay, but tilting that or using italic form, that is quite common. Look over here, it's written in italic form. So it's a genus called as rhizobium. Rhizobium is a type of bacteria, and this rhizobium has the function of what? That is, it dissociates or converts this molecular nitrogen into ammonia. Alright, so how do it do, or where does this rhizobium or rhizobia reside? What happens that these bacteria are found in the nodules of legumes. Legumes are plants. Which plants? Plants belonging to pea family. Pea family plants, okay? Or you can say from beans. So what does these bacteria do? Rhizobium, they adjust themselves at the roots of the legumes over here. When they enter this legume, this plant, it allows the bacteria to infect its roots. So when the bacteria infect its roots, so if you have observed, so whenever something infects us, so that portion becomes a bit swollen, right? So these portions are then swollen up like this. Okay, so when bacteria infects the leguminous plants, roots of the leguminous plants, they become swollen. And inside this legume or inside this swollen portion, the bacteria, which bacteria? Rhizobium resides. And now what is the function of the bacteria? The function of this bacteria is to fix or to capture nitrogen from the atmosphere and then converts it into ammonia, NH4. Alright. Now this ammonia is being taken by the legume or by the plant to grow. So here bacteria is giving benefit to the plant, whereas this plant or this legume is also giving benefit to bacteria. Benefit number 1 is that it is giving it place to reside or to live. And benefit number 2 is that the food which this legume make, so the bacteria takes that organic food from it as well, right? So both are beneficial to each other. So the symbiotic, here a word is used in the same paragraph, that is symbiotic relationship. So symbiotic relationship means a relationship where two of the different species depend on each other. They depend on each other. Alright. Now symbiosis, a symbiotic relationship may be of two types. One is that both of them are beneficial to each other. Beneficial to each other. And other is one of them is beneficial and the other one is harmful. And the third is also that both of them are harmful to each other, so that then they cannot exist, right? So when the case is that both of them are beneficial to each other, that case is known as mutual relationship. Mutual relationship. Okay, so the symbiotic relationship which is found in leguminous plants and in rhizobium bacteria, so that is mutual relationship. This means that both are beneficial to each other. And what happens in this form, that is that the rhizobium helps molecular nitrogen to fix or not fix to to fix and to convert it into ammonia and to fix it in the leguminous plants, right? Except the bacteria, there are some natural processes, for example lava or volcano, for example lightning, for example bushfires. So all of them also help to convert molecular nitrogen because they are quite strong, right? And because of their strength or because of their power, this nitrogen molecule or nitrogen bond can be broken down, and so it can be changed into ammonia. So they can also change. So the relationship or the step number 1 was what? It was the fixing of nitrogen, molecular nitrogen in the form of ammonia, right? Or ammonia. It was what? This was nitrogen fixation. I hope this topic is clear. Now coming towards nitrogen uptake and decay. Alright. So first, what happened in our first cycle, in our first step, that was nitrogen fixation, molecular nitrogen was converted to ammonia, right? Now, after this conversion, the ammonium is then absorbed by or is then utilized by the plant as well as by the bacteria itself. So, the bacteria uses it to make organic compounds. Then when this bacteria or when these organisms or other soil organisms are died, then decomposers act over them. What do decomposers do? So as the bacteria or other soil organisms, they did what? They have converted the molecular oxygen into ammonia, into organic compounds, right? Ammonium was used to make organic compounds, and then those decomposers dissociate the organic compounds made by these bacteria. They are dissociated into or they are broken down into nitrogen. And then again this nitrogen is converted into what? Into ammonium. And now this ammonium is ready, or now this ammonium is available, freely available for the plants to absorb, right? So number 1, bacteria was fixing the nitrogen, molecular nitrogen into ammonia, and then ammonia was ready for absorption by plants, whereas the bacteria who used this ammonium, the organic compound from the plant was also used by because it was a symbiotic relationship, a mutual relationship, so they have absorbed those organic compound as well. So when they are died, so decomposers act on them and converts this organic compound in nitrogen and then nitrogen into ammonium. So this ammonium is also available for plants, right? This is how the plants get what? The plants get nitrogen in the form of ammonium, because nitrogen cannot be taken by the plants directly, as I explained it before, that there is a triple bond in between them, right? Okay, so then what happens, then the ammonium is available for the plants, and further transformation is also happened, and that transformation, but till here your course is that nitrogen uptake and decay, how nitrogen has been taken and how this nitrogen is then decay of organic compounds are being decayed into nitrogen and then ammonia and then being absorbed by plants. So plants will use it further for further requirements, right, for making DNA, for making proteins and all those. Let's read from here what they say. Although the majority of the air we breathe is nitrogen, so most of the nitrogen in the atmosphere is available for use of organisms. This is because the strong triple bond between nitrogen atoms in molecular nitrogen makes it relatively inert. Inert means stable. They cannot react. In fact, in order for plants and animals to be able to use nitrogen gas must first be converted to such forms like ammonium, and then from ammonium it should be converted into nitrates or organic nitrogen. For example, urea. The formula of urea is NH2 whole 2 CO. So we can write it as well, that is CO means C double bond O. It's also known as carbonyl group. And then NH2 are 2 moles, right? So NH2 over here and NH2 over here. This is what it's the formula of urea. Urea is a fertilizer. So either this nitrogen is then used in the form of urea, either in the form of ammonium, either in the form of nitrates and nitrites. Okay, so nitrogen uptake and decay and nitrogen fixation is clear to everyone. And now coming towards your third topic, that is here in your last 3 lines, they have explained it as well. The ammonium is available for use by plants or further transformation. So this further transformation into nitrate ion is through a process called nitrification. Let's look over here. What happened? The first step was nitrogen, molecular nitrogen was changed into ammonium, right? Then this ammonium was used by plants. Now this ammonium has also to be changed into nitrates, NO3 minus. But before changing into nitrate, this ammonium must change into nitrite first. Nitrite means NO2 minus. Okay, and then from NO2 minus it is changed into NO3 minus. But as molecular nitrogen to form ammonium required a bacterium like rhizobium, in the same way conversion of ammonium to nitrite and then to nitrate also needs some bacteria. So when ammonium is converted to amine, that is with the help of one group bacteria, group 1, and when nitrite is converted to nitrate, that is with the help of group 2 bacteria, right? So the group of bacteria which converts ammonium into nitrite ions, they are known as nitrosomonas. Don't forget to write them in italic way like this, okay, not in the straight form. You have to write it in italic way, okay. And then the bacteria which are responsible, the second group of bacteria which are responsible to convert nitrites into nitrates, they are known as Nitrobacter. Which bacteria? Nitrobacter, right? So without the presence of nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter, ammonium cannot be converted to nitrite and nitrate, because nitrite and nitrate are quite useful materials for living organisms. So the presence of these bacteria is also important. So rhizobium is for nitrogen fixation and nitrosomonas is for conversion of ammonia into nitrite, and then nitrite into nitrate will require Nitrobacter, right? Alright, so after this, what we have the final step, that is denitrification. Now, denitrification is very important. How is it important? That is because denitrification is the only step in the nitrogen cycle which sends back the nitrogen in free form to the atmosphere and which removes the nitrogen from the ecosystem of the plants, right, or of this forest. So what happens actually in this case? That is that we need another bacteria as well. So denitrification is the reverse of the process. What was our process? The process was, let's draw it again. We were having molecular nitrogen. Molecular nitrogen was converted into ammonia with the help of what? With the help of a bacterium. That bacterium is known as rhizobium. Then ammonium was converted into nitrite, and this nitrite was made with the help of a bacterium, and the bacterium was known as Nitrosomonas. Then this nitrite was converted into nitrate, and this conversion was because of the presence of a bacterium, and that bacterium is Nitrobacter, right? All these three forms are very important for living organisms because they cannot directly get nitrogen or molecular nitrogen. But now, as continuous absorption of nitrogen from the atmosphere is being taken, this means that the percentage of nitrogen in the atmosphere, which is 78, that will be lessened, which is not good for our health, right? Its presence should be kept as constant. So for that purpose, another process has been made by Almighty Allah, which is our fourth process. The fourth process is called as denitrification, and in that process, this nitrite and this nitrite and nitrate both are converted into molecular nitrogen, right? Anyway, look over here. So this is NO2, it is NO3. Over here, there is oxygen, there is oxygen. So in your book, a statement, a word is used that is oxides, right? Oxide or oxidized form of nitrogen. This means that oxygen being attached with these nitrogen. Here there is no oxygen, so it's not the oxidized form. Only the oxidized form of the nitrogen will be converted to molecular nitrogen. But now what about this oxygen? So this oxygen will be given off to the environment with the nitrogen in the form of nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is N2O or dinitrogen oxide. This nitrous oxide is also called as laughing gas. Laughing gas doesn't mean that this gas, when you inhale it, so you will start laughing. Sometimes you can, but usually what happens, that it is a sweet ordering gas. It's sweet ordering gas, okay? So when you inhale this gas, you for some time forget the pain. That is why it's known as laughing gas, okay? So this laughing gas or this nitrous oxide is released to the atmosphere in a lesser extent or in a less proportion, and remaining nitrogen, molecular nitrogen, is released to the environment. This process is also requires bacteria, and that bacteria is known as Pseudomonas. Okay, so it was your nitrogen cycle, and you got this nitrogen once again. Now this nitrogen will be again absorbed by rhizobium. Rhizobium will convert it into ammonium. Ammonium will convert it to nitrite by Nitrosomonas. Nitrosomonas will then Nitrobacter will be there, which will convert nitrite into into nitrate, and then oxides of these nitrogen, that is nitrite and nitrate, will be converted to molecular nitrogen and laughing gas with the help of a bacterium known as Pseudomonas, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, altogether 4 bacteria, 4 types of bacteria are important or are required for nitrogen cycle. And which step is very much important? That was your step number 2 and your step number 4. All of them are very important, but denitrification is important in this case, that it keeps this percentage constant in the atmosphere, whereas your second step and third step are also important. So what you have to do, you have to read the topic carefully, and then wherever you find any difficulty, you have to ask. You may ask in Google Classroom, you may ask in your WhatsApp group, you may ask in here the comment bar, and visit your Google Classroom. See your homework, do your homework, stay home, stay safe. Bye bye, take care.